From her introduction, Erina Nakiri was the least free character in Food Wars. Even though on the outside she's arrogant, entitled, and obnoxious, there are reasons to why she's like this, and they're much more sinister than what you might think. Hey guys, DotuNXD here, and today I'm going to be deep diving into Erina Nakiri, one of my favorite deuteragonists in manga. I'll be analyzing her journey to freedom, and how she went from a girl confined to the shackles of her family name to a woman capable of standing up to her fears and dictating her own path in life. This is going to be a long analysis, so go grab some popcorn, relax your chair, and buckle down for the ride. Before we get into this, make sure to like this video and please hit that subscribe button. I know y'all like the content, so it's a win-win for both of us. Anyways, without further ado, let's get right into this. Let's start off this analysis with Erina's backstory, so that we can understand why she is the way she is and her lack of freedom. Erina was born into the prestigious Nakiri family, a family that has overseen Totsuki Institute, the best culinary institute in Japan, for generations. This family is at the very top of the culinary hierarchy in Japan. Furthermore, Erina was born with the divine tongue, which is an extremely rare ability found only within certain members of the Nakiri clan throughout their entire history. This ability makes her tongue extremely hypersensitive, granting her the ability to detect the ingredients, imperfections, and necessities within a dish. Despite its benefits, it's quite a burdensome feature to be born with. For one, being born with the divine tongue meant that Erina was subject to exploitation from the food industry. Day after day, Erina had to sit and taste dishes for different businesses, because she had the divine tongue and she's the successor to the Nakiri clan. To make things worse, most of the time she didn't even enjoy the dishes that she was eating. Bad dish after bad dish, day after day, this process was just extremely mentally draining. It's also worth noting that a lot of these people didn't see Erina as a person. Really, they just saw her as a tool that they can use to get the information that they wanted. As a child, Erina was burdened with the workload of an adult, and in this sense, she was already robbed of the childhood experiences that a normal kid should have. The abuse that Erina received from her father also plays a huge role in who she is. When Erina was little, her father Azumi would bring her into a dark room within the Nakiri mansion to enforce his cooking ideals into her. His ideals being that the world of cooking is very black and white. Dishes either meet the gourmet standard or they don't, and any dish that doesn't meet this standard is utter garbage. One of the main ideas that Azumi drills into Erina is the idea that to create a gourmet dish, one must use very traditional and textbook methods, that there's no room for thinking outside the box or unorthodox ideas. Lastly, Azumi entrusted the idea that it's Erina's responsibility as the divine tongue to climb the ranks of Totsuki Institute, the pinnacle of Japan's culinary world. At first, Erina was unwilling to go along with these ideas, but Azumi physically and emotionally forced her to do what he said. This authoritarian and abusive style of teaching struck fear within Erina's heart. In fear of her father, Erina starts to go along with his teachings until eventually they become a part of her identity and her personal views. As we'll see, she starts to play into these negative and exclusive parts of her identity, even after Azumi is forced to stop his teaching and is exiled from Totsuki and interacting with Erina. Like I said, Erina starts to play into these negative and exclusive parts of her identity that stem from her father's teachings. This is the Erina that we meet at the beginning of Food Wars, the Erina with the superiority complex who thinks she's better than everyone, the elitist who thinks only people who come from backgrounds of merit are worth getting into Totsuki, the Erina that thinks the world of cooking is only black and white. This is the facade that we see Erina put up for a good amount of the series. As we'll see later, behind this facade, Erina is actually struggling from an existential crisis. We can see this through her lack of freedom because of her various social constraints and her dehumanizing social relations. Erina's feelings are often neglected by people. Rather than caring about how she actually feels or what she wants, they only care about her status and existence as the divine tongue. We can see this through Erina's backstory, when the businessmen tell Erina that she should always put the Nakiri name first, instead of considering her own quote-unquote selfish feelings. It's these same people who push the idea that Erina has this perfect lifestyle and that she should be happy with her life, even though on the inside Erina is actually suffering. As I stated earlier, many people in the food industry only care about Erina for exploitative reasons, mostly for what she can provide them with her divine tongue. And as long as they can manipulate Erina to suit their purpose, they could care less about how she actually feels. Furthermore, we also need to look at Erina's dynamic with the majority of Totsuki students. Most of these people see Erina as some sort of higher being because of her divine tongue and social status. Because of this, they don't treat Erina as one of their own. They only see her as someone who's above them, and someone who's too good for them. As a result, Erina is quite distant from most, if not all, of her classmates. Even Hisako, Erina's closest friend, sees Erina as someone superior to her. Earlier in the series, when Erina needed Hisako most, Hisako was all depressed because she thought her loss would ruin their friendship, because she puts Erina on this pedestal. Hisako genuinely thought she wasn't worthy to be Erina's friend. She never thought about whether Erina would be lonely or not, or considered the fact that she's really Erina's only friend. It's hard to form genuine friendships when both parties don't see each other as equal. When you combine the idealism of the masses, the exploitation of the food industry, and the overall ideals that Erina has to live up to as the successor of the Nakiri clan, her social experiences can be quite dehumanizing. In fact, there's a scene in chapter 67 where Erina points out that Alice is lucky because at least she gets to cry whenever she feels like it. Erina doesn't have that kind of liberty because of the different social constraints placed upon her and the fact that she feels like she needs to play into these ideals as the owner of the divine tongue and as a member of the Nakiri clan. At all times, she has to think about how her behavior represents her family and her name. These different social constraints are a primary example of Erina's lack of freedom. Additionally, it's important to note that at this point, Erina views cooking negatively. Because of her divine tongue and the traditional nature of the food industry, a lot of the food that Erina eats is either boring, disappointing, or downright awful, if not all three. Even if the food is good, it's the same old predictable ideas. The one thing that keeps Erina going is her hope that she meets Joichiro again because of his cooking style, fun and innovative. He was the one who made her realize how fun cooking could be, and until this scene, we'll see that Erina doesn't enjoy cooking anymore. It's just a responsibility that she has to deal with because of her name and status. So when does everything start to change for Erina? Well, it all starts with our protagonist, Soma Yukihira. From the day they met, Soma served as the perfect rival to Erina and her ideology. At this point of the story, Erina is characterized by her superiority complex and elitism, believing that only people with backgrounds of high merit deserve to be acknowledged. Additionally, the view of traditional cooking being the only path to gourmet cooking. So when she meets Soma Yukihira, an amazingly talented chef from a small family-style restaurant who's characterized by his creativity and also has a massive sense of pride, they were bound to clash. Now at first, Erina used to hate Soma, and for a few reasons. First of all, Soma's cooking. You might be thinking, but she clearly likes Soma's food. Just hold on though, let me break it down. Soma's cooking style is very unorthodox. His food is extremely good, but it's usually completely outside of the box or based on traditional family-style meals. It's the exact opposite of what Erina's father taught her was good food. So even if Erina's mouth loves Soma's food, she can't accept it because of her father's teachings and how deeply his ideas are planted into her mind. To accept Soma's cooking would also mean accepting that this creative style of cooking can be considered delicious and gourmet, something that Erina's brainwashing opposes. Furthermore, Erina's ego won't let her accept Soma's cooking. Erina had this closed-minded mentality that as the divine tongue, she knows everything about good food. So when she saw something outside of her knowledge tasting amazing, it just didn't make sense to her, and she couldn't accept it. It's not until we get to this scene that we see Erina fully accept Soma's cooking. Another reason that Erina hated Soma is because of his view of her. As I discussed earlier, everyone around Erina either views her as someone far superior to them or as someone that they can use. Soma was the one person who treated Erina like she wasn't special. The one person who never put her on a pedestal. During the tests when they first met, he trolls her several times. He even probes her to say his food is good, as he has her on the brink of tears. Additionally, he also challenges her prejudiced view towards people from backgrounds of lower merit, claiming that, if all you're doing is sitting on your laurels at the top, I think there's stuff out there that you just can't make. At first, Erina hates this. She can't stand the thought of being treated like this by a plebeian like Soma. Her ego won't let her. That's why at the beginning of the series, Erina tries to get Soma expelled and show off her quote-unquote superiority at any given chance. And although she hates it at first, Soma's behavior towards her is something that she grows to appreciate later on in the series. Now that I've brought up Soma for the sake of this analysis, it's important for me to bring up how he's the ultimate portrayal of freedom in Foodwars. Despite being at the greatest culinary institute in Japan, he never lets their traditional culinary standards impact his cooking style. Creativity and courage are Soma's biggest weapons when it comes to cooking. Soma's always coming up with risky, yet creative methods to outclass his opponents. His cooking style is the epitome of freedom because he never lets traditional cooking knowledge limit his ideas. You can never put Soma in a box because even if you disagree with his cooking methods, his food is undoubtedly good. With every dish he makes and every shokugeki he wins, Soma challenges different culinary standards and ideals. One of my favorite examples of Soma's freedom is Soma's shokugeki against Eizan. With his back completely against the wall and his doormat steak, Soma comes up with an extremely creative chicken wing dish. In this shokugeki, the judges are affiliated with the Azumi administration, and Eizan actually pays them off to rig the match. The judges share the Azumi's shallow ideal of cooking, that there's only one correct route to making a gourmet dish. Soma breaks through their ideal completely with his chicken wings, showing that there isn't a single path to making gourmet food, that there are so many ways to make a gourmet dish. You don't have to conform to the traditional culinary standards. Furthermore, he also proved that you can't just judge a dish based on its creation, just because it doesn't fit within your ideals. This match also teaches us the importance of having an open mind and being inclusive, especially when judging other people. To really see if a dish is gourmet, you actually need to try it because you never know if you'll end up actually liking it. This match showcases Soma's freedom not only through his cooking style, but also through his ideals of the cooking world, and through his very own existence. No matter how hard you try to corner him, Soma will always find a way to impose his freedom, whether it be against a student or against the head of school. At the beginning of the story, Soma and Erina are almost complete opposites. One sees value in failure, seeing it as a learning experience, while the other sees it as an excuse for losing. One was born and raised in a nurturing family, while the other was a victim of child abuse, neglect, and brainwashing. One is extremely passionate about cooking, while the other merely sees it as a responsibility. One is the definition of freedom, while the other is completely confined to the ideological standards of other people. There are so many ways that Soma and Erina differ, and really, the one thing that they had in common was their pride. But as we'll see, slowly but surely, Soma's character starts to rub off on Erina. Even though Erina still hates Soma and what he stands for, after the Fall Classic, she can't deny that he's an amazing chef. After the Classic, we start to see some changes in Erina's character. She's more friendly to everyone, engages in small talk, and even helps Soma with his dish for the festival. Even Hisako points out to Soma that Erina has changed. A lot of the former prejudice that Erina used to have, especially when it comes to elitism and classism, starts to wash away. She starts to become more inclusive towards the people around her, and has actually started to form some genuine bonds with people. Although Erina doesn't want to admit it, it's all because of Soma. Soma was the one who destroyed Erina's prejudiced views about people of lower social status through his constant success at Totsuki. He was also the first person who treated Erina like a friend and like an actual high school girl, rather than the owner of the Divine Tongue or the dean's granddaughter. Furthermore, Erina gets exposed to the Polaris residents. People who aren't afraid to take risks and think outside the box. People who will fight even if their fate has been determined. People who dare to contradict Erina's tongue even though it's seen as unequivocally correct. People who treated Erina as one of their own. Through Soma and the members of Polaris, Erina discovers this hopeful and existentialist ideology and it starts to make her curious. Why do these people disregard all the cooking advice I give them? How can they keep trying unwaveringly even when I say that their food is bad? Why do they choose to fight knowing that there's nothing that they can do? However, just as Erina starts to change, the person who she fears the most re-enters her life. Her father, Azumi. Azumi's abuse towards Erina goes much further than just her ideals of cooking and her identity. His abuse was so scarring and traumatic for Erina that she's downright frightened of him. From the start, we can see just how much Erina fears Azumi. Just the sight of him had her trembling and sweating in fear. Additionally, Azumi has Erina in the palm of his hand. He almost has absolute control over her, simply with his presence. Some good examples of this are when Azumi steals the seat that Erina reserves for Joichiro, or the scene where Azumi goes to Polaris and asks Erina to walk towards him, and she follows obediently. Erina can't fathom the thought of disobeying her father. As we'll see, Azumi comes back to reinvent Totsuki into this cooking utopia under his authoritarian rule. His goal is to rid Totsuki of all its quote-unquote contaminated creativity and make a place where chefs can follow a singular path towards gourmet cooking. Basically, he wants to strip chefs of their creative freedom and have them only follow his traditional cooking style. The worst part is, Erina serves as the compass to Azumi's ideals because of her divine tongue and its abilities to find imperfections and necessities within a dish, meaning that once again, Erina is going to be put under the direct control of her father. After Azumi comes back, Alice, Hisako, and Ryo help Erina escape the Nakiri mansion and go to Polaris. For a lot of her time in Polaris, Erina just sits down in a depressed state. She doesn't know what to do with all the chaos surrounding her life. Her father coming back and revolutionizing Totsuki. Joichiro, the chef she looked up to most, being affiliated with Soma and somehow connected to her father's plans. Everyone at Polaris fighting for their dorm. She's just so lost and confused. When Erina goes to watch Alice's Shokugeki against a member of Central, Alice tells Erina what she needed to hear most. That instead of just watching everything from the sidelines, Erina needs to stand up for herself. That Erina needs to show her father that she's her own person and not just a tool to be manipulated. Additionally, about 10 chapters earlier, we see an interesting conversation between Soma and Erina. Erina says that she doesn't know what to do anymore since the one thing that she had left to believe in, Joichiro's cooking, is somehow intertwined with the whole Central situation. And Soma simply tells Erina that just because something happened in the past doesn't mean he's going to let it impact him now. He sees things that he doesn't agree with, so he's going to step up and fight for change. These two conversations are impactful to Erina. By seeing Soma and Alice's resolve, Erina starts to think about herself and what she really wants to do. The problem is, she doesn't know what she wants to do. And this is where we see Erina start to develop somewhat of an identity crisis. She doesn't know who she should associate herself with. On one hand, there's Central, an organization run by her father that wants to centralize Totsuki into one path towards gourmet cooking. On the other hand, we have the Resistance, mostly comprised of Polaris residents, who are fighting for the freedom of expression when it comes to cooking. Although Erina sees the truth to her father's ideals, the people of Polaris have intriguing cooking styles that are fun, creative, and free, which is subconsciously what Erina always wanted cooking to be. Despite this, Erina still doesn't have enough conviction to choose one of these sides. That's why Erina goes to Soma's room and confides to him about her problems, because he's at the center of the Resistance, someone who everyone believes in, and he's the person who's influenced her changes the most. After hearing about Erina's past and looking at her current predicament, Soma decides that maybe what Erina needs is a blast from the past, a taste of true Yukihiro cooking. While Soma's cooking, Erina notices how he's always smiling and just having so much fun. She reminisces about how cooking used to be fun for her, but as we saw, the responsibilities of the divine tongue and the trauma from her father ruined Erina's view of cooking. The dish that Soma ends up serving Erina is an egg rice bowl. Even though it's a dish made with cheap eggs and doesn't fit her ideal of gourmet, Soma's dish still tastes amazing to Erina. And at this point, Erina has to ask, why? Why does Soma choose to cook food like this? Food that goes against common culinary teachings. Food that's so unorthodox. And Soma gives her 2 reasons. 1, people who think there's one right answer won't go on to discover something better. In other words, people who just follow common knowledge will only create something that's to be expected. They'll never go above and beyond with their cooking. But the biggest reason that Soma cooks like this is because it's no fun if you already know what you're going to get. And he's right. Of course, making the same traditional recipes that have been made for years is going to be boring. That's why Soma adds his own creative flair and experimentations. To make cooking fun, Erina had been trapped in a world of traditional, orthodox, and single-minded cooking for so long, whether it be through tasting or cooking meals. Soma's dish helps Erina realize that, damn, this is the type of cooking that I really wanted to make when I was younger, the type of cooking that I considered to be fun. Furthermore, now Erina finally understands the viewpoint of the Polaris residents. They just want to have the freedom to express themselves in the kitchen, to experiment with their recipes and come up with fun, new, innovative cooking. Erina realizes that her father's ideals that his view of gourmet is the objective truth is not only shallow, but it's just wrong. Not only is this a scene where Erina finally accepts Soma and his cooking, but it's where she finally strengthens her resolve and takes a step towards gaining her freedom from Azumi's manipulation. Erina finally decides that she wants to help the resistance, and this free, innovative world of cooking is something that she wants to believe in and fight for. The scene in Soma's room serves as an enlightenment for Erina. She's finally freed herself from the grasp of her father's teachings and has decided the path that she wants to follow. From here, we see her take a lead role in the resistance. She holds study sessions for the dorm, making sure everyone's prepared for the advancement exams. In chapter 172, she even calls out Soma for his lax approach to preparation, saying she won't tolerate anyone in the dorm getting expelled. Erina's determination is one of the ways she shows her gratitude towards the Polaris residents. They took Erina in when they didn't have to, and truly treated her like she was one of their own. These were probably the first times where Erina was treated like a normal person by her peers, and that's why these people are so special to her. Because for the first time in her life, Erina has true friends. As the story moves on, we get glimpses of Erina's new outlook on life, as we see in chapter 178. In the past, when she used to visit places for her duty as a taster, she was pretty much a slave to the different expectations and pressures that come with being the divine tongue of the Nakiri family. But now that Erina has finally freed herself from those shackles, she can see things through her own eyes for once and really appreciate what life has to offer. And we even see her take accountability for neglecting Nakiri, which was cool to see. As we go through the advancement exams, we can really see how much Erina cares about her friends. When the resistance members get expelled, Erina is so upset and opposed to this that she even resorts to sacrificing her pride to beg her father not to expel them. Not only is this scene great because it shows Erina swallowing her pride to beg, but it's also great that we see her opposing her father's wishes for the first time. We have to remember that this is the same Erina that would tremble at the sight of her father and obey his every word. The same Erina that could never tell her father what she wanted to do. So for her to face her fears, set her pride aside, and stand up for something that she truly wanted shows Erina's resolve and how much she values her friends. Fast forward a bit and we're back on the train, and Erina, Soma, Takumi, and Megumi are preparing for the Team Shokugeki against Central, along with Joichiro, Gin, and some others. This is when we learn about Joichiro's backstory. When we learn about Joichiro's backstory, we can see some really interesting parallels between Joichiro and Erina. Both Joichiro and Erina are victims of the idealism from the culinary industry and the people around them. Joichiro with people constantly placing expectation upon expectation on him. These people only cared about the results that Joichiro could give them, but not about his actual well-being, and this took a toll on Joichiro, causing him to become mentally strained from the constant expectation of these results. Furthermore, his classmates completely disregarded the work and the struggle that he was going through, claiming that he was just naturally talented. No one cared enough to really look at him and see what he was going through, and eventually he had to run away from cooking because it was killing his mental health. Erina's situation is very similar to Joichiro's. We've seen how the culinary industry doesn't actually care about her, and how they only care about her divine tongue and the benefits that it can give them. Just like what they did to Joichiro, they completely disregarded Erina's suffering and trauma, saying that she lives a fortunate life and she should be happy with what she has. This dehumanizing treatment is one of the reasons why Erina has such a negative view on the food industry and cooking, and it plays a role in her existential crisis. Both Joichiro and Erina end up getting saved by Soma in some way. Soma saves Joichiro through his unwavering courage to fight no matter how many times his father has beat him, proving that there are still people who are willing to take up challenges no matter how talented their opposition is. Soma saves Erina through showing her that there's another side to cooking, that cooking doesn't have to be this boring and repetitive craft, that it can be fun, innovative, and creative. Joichiro and Erina's dynamic isn't really explored explicitly, but I think it's a really interesting one. We see how Joichiro and Erina are two sides of the same coin, and how idealism can be dehumanizing in some cases. Anyways, back to the main story. On the train, we start to see more of Erina's mental conflict. She knows that she wants to help the resistance, no doubt about it, but she's still scared of facing her father. Helping the resistance members pass through teaching them is one thing, but directly challenging her father face to face is another beast. Before Erina can even fully think this through, the group does a mock Shokugeki practice run, with Erina, Joichiro, and Soma being on the same team. During this match, for the first time Erina is exposed to Joichiro and Soma's father-son relationship. In the kitchen, Joichiro and Soma both have very self-centered cooking styles, but in the end they manage to make it work out because they can put out their ideas without fear. Erina asks her grandfather if Soma's behavior is rude considering the way he contradicts his father. Erina says that she can never do something so selfish. This mentality is the result of Erina's past. As I've said earlier, when she was younger, almost everyone around Erina would tell her that she needs to act for the sake of the Nakiri family, that being selfish was a bad thing. The reality is, if you're always thinking about what other people think, you're making yourself a slave to their ideals. You'll never get to do what you want to do. Furthermore, Erina's abusive relationship with Azumi makes the idea of acting against one's father so foreign. And it's at this point where Senzaemon reminds Erina that they're father and daughter, that it's a parent's job to indulge in their children, that there's nothing wrong with the child being a little selfish. And as we'll see in the future, Soma's relationship with Joichiro influences Erina's view on what a parent-child relationship should be. Now let's talk about what I think is one of the best scenes in Food Wars. The scene where Erina relinquishes her seat from the Elite 10. I think everything about this scene was done perfectly. From the start, when Central meets with the Resistance, we see Azumi trying to manipulate Erina, giving her a cold stare and claiming that he's done with her selfishness. We see Erina breathing in and out, preparing to say something. And then we get a flashback. The scene starts with Erina getting her spot in the Elite 10. Then it shifts back to the dark room where Azumi held his lessons with Erina. We see Azumi telling Erina that it's the Divine Tongue's responsibility to stand at the pinnacle of Totsuki. Then we get brought back to the present. We get a peek into Erina's mind, seeing all of her flashbacks from this past saga. The memories with Polaris, the trip to the downtown, her conversations with everyone. And then we finally hear it. Erina says that she relinquishes her seat from the Elite 10. That she can't truly call herself a friend of the Resistance members if she doesn't fight for them. This is the moment where Erina truly becomes free from her father and all the social constrictions that have been restricting her. As I've discussed, Erina has always been someone who let the ideals of other people control how she acts, because of her name and status. She's always thinking, as the owner of the Divine Tongue, how should I present myself? In this scenario, it's a mental battle between Erina and Central. Does she conform to the ideals of her father and the rest of Totsuki and fight for Central? Or does she go against her father and help the Resistance? At the end of the day, Erina chooses to give up her position of power and do what she truly wants to do, help her friends and fight for their cooking style. At this point, Erina doesn't care about living up to the ideals other people have of the Divine Tongue. She's going to do what she wants to do. And that's the definition of freedom. Erina's whole life she's been told who she has to be, but now she finally decides who she wants to be. Being a member of the Elite 10 doesn't just mean power in Totsuki. It means power and status in Japan's culinary world. In this scene, the Elite 10 seat is symbolic of the expectations that Erina deals with from everyone around her, whether it be from the Totsuki students or her father. In the backstory, we see that climbing up the ranks of Totsuki was the ultimate goal that Azumi set for Erina. We also know that as the Divine Tongue, she has social pressure from both the food industry and her classmates to be at the top of Totsuki. Before, Erina was a slave to these different social constrictions. Erina dropping this symbol of power is symbolic of her freeing herself. Another thing that I like about this scene is that it didn't feel rushed. It's not like Erina woke up one day and decided that she's going to go against her father. If Erina had immediately decided to directly go against her father, her development would have felt rushed. But we got to see the different internal conflicts that Erina faces during this process of freedom, and this helps us as the audience understand Erina and how deeply ingrained her trauma was. We slowly saw Erina's resolve grow over a period of time. Additionally, I like how realistic this scene was. Erina taking deep breaths to gain her composure, and her nervous face after she made the statement. Azumi giving us this kind of sad face for the first time. It was just so well executed. The next scene I would like to highlight as we go through this analysis is Erina's Shokugeki match against Momo. Just from the start of the match, we can see some parallels between the two. Growing up, Momo was an expert at identifying cuteness in different products, which made many businesses flock towards her because of her ability. They even tried to manipulate Momo and tell her that she can't go to Totsuki. This is kind of similar to what Erina went through with her Divine Tongue. Momo also has the same closed-minded mentality that Erina had regarding food at the beginning of the series, thinking that she knew everything about cuteness, just like how Erina thought that she knew everything about gourmet cooking. Erina ends up making a unique dorayaki dish. Momo claims that the dish can't be better than hers because the bean paste that Erina added quote-unquote ruined it. When Erina serves her dorayaki to Momo, Momo is astonished by how amazing the dish is. At the same time, Momo can't accept that it's good because it's outside of her knowledge, threatening her ego. After all, Momo thinks she knows everything about cuteness. In this moment, we see Erina reflect on how she was just like Momo. How she couldn't accept Soma's cooking because she thought she knew everything about gourmet cooking and wouldn't accept food that was outside of her knowledge. Erina acknowledges how she used to be an ice queen and sit arrogantly at her throne, just like Momo. But like Soma said, if all you're doing is sitting on your laurels at the top, I think there's stuff out there that you just can't make. Erina has grown from her past self, and she's become someone who's more open-minded and creative with her cooking, ultimately beating the shallow-minded Momo. I like how Erina said it was a pleasure to serve at the end, which shows how much Erina looks up to Soma and respects him and what he stands for, especially after her reflection. Now to round out this analysis, we have to talk about the final match against Central. Soma and Erina versus Eishi and Rindo. Now before the match even started, Soma and Erina were having problems cooperating, with both of them wanting to make the main dish. Going into the match, Erina was planning on a more reserved and calculated approach. However, after tasting Tsukasa's dish, Soma realizes that Erina's plan wasn't going to work out. They would both need to go all out and use their specialties if they wanted a chance to win. So instead of following Erina's plan, Soma makes his own specialty and challenges Erina to a metaphorical shokugeki. Because in order to win, Erina would need a specialty that surpasses Soma's. At first, Erina seems a little skeptical, but then Soma reminds her, "Isn't this so us?" And this scene pretty much defines their relationship. From the beginning, Erina and Soma's relationship has been defined by rivalry. Soma wanting to make Erina say his food is good, and Erina resisting this, trying to prove her superiority. Both of them have strong senses of pride, which is why they always clash and never give in to each other. But as the saying goes, iron sharpens iron. Soma as an individual has changed Erina's overall mindset when it comes to cooking and has truly brought out the best in her. Erina has helped Soma a lot as well. In the conclusion of Food Wars, Soma even admits that he needed someone as stubborn and contrary as Erina to keep pulling him forward. The competitiveness between these two pushes them to become greater chefs. Despite their rivalry, the two of them are capable of coming together and producing something great, as we see with the mock shokugeki that they did on the train. Knowing this, Erina accepts Soma's challenge of creating a specialty to beat his specialty. Even though Erina accepts Soma's challenge, the problem is she doesn't have a specialty. A specialty is your strongest hand, the best dish that you can possibly make, a dish that you're really passionate about and confident in. Erina's divine tongue allows her to enhance any dish that she makes, so technically everything she makes could be considered a specialty. But these dishes lack the conviction and passion that come with a specialty. Even Soma points out how none of the dishes that Erina made the night prior would stand up to Eishi's. Due to her strict upbringing and her negative view of cooking as she got older, Erina never developed a dish that she feels passionate about. So now Erina needs to search for this specialty. We see Erina rewind through her memory and think to herself, what path have I walked to reach where I am now? And after thinking about that, we see Erina come up with her specialty, a chicken and rice egg bowl. The fact that Erina's specialty is a chicken and rice egg bowl shows the changes in Erina's ideology. Before the whole Central saga, Erina would have never considered a chicken and rice egg bowl to be gourmet. It's also at this point that we see Erina is no longer intimidated by her father. Even though Azumi tries to intimidate Erina by telling her that there's no way the dish she made could be gourmet, Erina just mocks him. In fact, even before the match, Erina says that the little good girl that Azumi once knew no longer exists. Even though Azumi tries to explain his reasoning for Central's existence, Erina says that cooking requires freedom, and that's something that she's willing to put everything on the line to protect. We can see Erina's creative freedom throughout this dish. The squid legs with peanut butter and the morphing aspic are two wild ideas that Erina is able to elevate to the gourmet level. These were both ideas that were inspired from Soma's cooking. Erina believes that even if the storm is unpredictable and grueling, there's nothing worse than stripping a chef of their freedom. And it's with this freedom and creativity that Erina is able to cook in the kitchen with a smile on her face. Erina's dish is so good that it spreads the effects of the gifting throughout the entire arena. As Azumi continues to protest in denial, we start to see Erina do some more reflection. She reflects on how the people in Polaris impacted her. These people with different values, views, and goals. The ones her father calls contaminated. These are the people that transformed Erina. The people who truly helped her find her identity and discover who she wanted to be. And it's because of the memories that she created with these people that Erina is able to make her true specialty. Just as she says, to Erina, these people are truly the greatest spices that cooking has to offer. And it's in this same scene that we see Erina recognize Tosuki, the place that her father has tried to deny and bring down, as a place where she's been reborn into a different person. In the end, Erina thanks her father for everything that he's done for her, because without him, she might not be the same woman that she is now. Erina's character journey was truly beautiful to watch. This journey covers intriguing topics like self-discovery, idealism, dehumanization, finding purpose, inclusivity, and of course, freedom. Erina's journey is so fleshed out and nuanced. We got to see her go through and overcome many internal conflicts and really see Erina's character evolve. In this journey, we see Erina go from a victim of society, bound to the shackles of her name, to someone who emerges from these shackles and is able to dictate how she wants to live her life. Erina's character journey displays several powerful messages. For one, it's important to not let other people and their ideals control who you are. We saw how Erina bore this burden of serving people's ideals as a divine tongue, and how it ended up straining her mentally. As we see with Erina, it's important to look within yourself and follow the path that you want to follow, not one that someone else decides for you. Through this, we can also learn the importance of taking control over your life, no matter how challenging it can be to take these steps. For a few chapters, Erina was just sitting around depressed in Polaris, not sure where to go or what to do. But after being inspired by Soma and Alice, she realizes that she needs to take steps to move forward and hold herself accountable, just like you need to do if you want to move forward in your life. Overall, Erina's journey to freedom coincides so well with the themes of courage, creative freedom, finding purpose, and inclusivity within Foodwars, and it was really compelling to watch. But yeah guys, that's all I have for this analysis since I covered what I wanted to cover with Erina's freedom. I didn't cover the blue arc, mostly because this video is already very long, but if you guys want me to do a part 2 or cover the blue arc and stuff, just let me know in the comments. But yeah, besides that, thank you to everyone who made it to the end of the video. I really appreciate the support. If you enjoy my content, add me on my other socials. The link will be in the description. And yeah, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Turn on post notifications, support the channel, and yeah, have a nice day, take care, and until the next video.